Said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses, assistant, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people, get ready to cross the Jordan into the land I'm about to give them to the Israelites. I will give you every place where you set your foot. As I promised Moses, your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon, and from the great river, the Euphrates, all the Hittite country, to the great sea on the west. No one will be able to stand up against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I'll be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their forefathers to give them. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the law my servant Moses gave, to the right or the left, that you may be successful wherever you go. Do not let this book of the law depart from your mouth. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to obey everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified, and do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. So Joshua ordered the officers of the people, go through the camp and tell the people, get your supplies ready. 3 days from now you will cross the Jordan here to go in and take possession of the land the Lord your God is giving you for your own. But to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, Joshua said, remember the command that Moses the servant of the Lord gave you. The Lord your God is giving you rest, has granted you this land. Your wives, your children, and your livestock may stay in the land that Moses gave you east of the Jordan. But that all your fighting men, fully armed, must cross over ahead of your brothers. You are to help your brothers until the Lord gives them rest, and as he has done for you, and until you to have taken possession of the land that the Lord your God is giving them. After that you may go back and occupy your own land, which Moses the servant of the Lord gave you east of the Jordan toward the sunrise. Then they answered Joshua, whatever you have commanded us we will do, and wherever you send us we will go. Just as we fully obey Moses, so we will fully obey you. Only may the Lord your God be with you as he was with Moses. Whoever rebels against you and does not obey your spirits, your words, wherever you may command them, will be put to death. Only be strong and courageous. Chapter 2. Rahab and the spies. Then Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent 2 spies from Shittim. Go quickly over to the land, he said, of Jericho. So they went and entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. The king of Jericho was told, look, some of the Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent this message to Rahab, bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, because they have come to spy out the whole land. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. She said, yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they had come from. At dusk, when it was time to close the city gate, the men left. I don't know which way they went. Go after them quickly. You may catch up with them. But she had taken them up into the roof and hidden them under the stalk of flax which she laid out on the roof. So the men set out in pursuit of the spies on the road that leads to the ford of Jordan, and as soon as pursuers had gone out, the gate was shut. Before the spies lay down for the night, she sent up on the roof and said to them, I know the Lord has given this land to you, and the great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what he did to Sihon and Og, the 2 kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan, whom you have completely destroyed. When we heard it, our hearts sank, and everyone's courage fell because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you'll spare the lives of my father and my mother, my brothers and sisters, and all belong to them, and that you will save us from death. Our lives for your lives, the man answered her. And if you don't tell us, if you don't tell what we are doing, we'll treat you kindly and faithfully when the Lord gives us the land. So she let them down by a rope through the window, for the house she lived in was in a part of the city wall. Now she had said to them, go to the hills, and so that the pursuers will not find you. Hide yourselves for 3 days until they return, and then go on your way. And the men said to her, this oath you have made us swear will not be binding on us unless when we enter the land, you've tied this scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down. Unless you have brought your father and mother, your brothers and all your family into your house, if anyone goes outside your house in the street, his blood will be on his own head. We will not be responsible. As for anyone who is in the house with you, his blood will be on our head if a hand is laid upon him. But if you tell what we are doing, we will be released from the oath you made us swear. Agreed, she said. Let it be as you say. So she sent them away, and they departed, and she tied the scarlet cord in the window. When they left, they went on into the hills and stayed 3 days until the pursuers had searched all along the road and returned without finding them. Then the 2 men started back. They went down out of the hills, forded the river, and came to Joshua, son of Nun, and told him everything that had happened to them. They said to Joshua, the Lord has surely given the whole land into our hands. All the people are melting in fear because of us. Chapter 3. Early in the morning, Joshua and all the Israelites set out from Shittim and went to the Jordan, where they camped before crossing over. The 3 days the officers went throughout the camp, giving orders to the people. When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests who are Levites carrying it, you are to move out from your positions and follow it. Then you will know which way to go, since you have not been in the land before. But keep a distance of about 1,000 yards between you and the ark. Do not go near it. Joshua told the people, consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you. Joshua said to the priests, take up the ark of the covenant and pass on ahead of the people. So they took it up and went ahead of them. And the Lord said to Joshua, today I'll begin to exalt you in the eyes of all Israel, so that they may know that I am with you, as I was with Moses. Tell the priests who carry the ark of the covenant, when you reach the edge of the Jordan's water, go in and stand in the river. Joshua said to the Israelites, come here and listen to the words of the Lord your God. That is how you will know that the living God is among you. They will certainly drive out before you the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, and the Jebusites. See the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and all the earth will go into the Jordan ahead of you. Now then, choose 12 men from the tribes of Israel, 1 from each tribe, and as soon as a priest who carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth, set foot in the Jordan, its water will stop flowing downstream, will be cut off, and stand up in a heap. So when the people broke camp to cross the Jordan, the priests carrying the ark of the covenant went ahead of them. Now the Jordan is in flood all during harvest. Yet as soon as the priests who carried the ark reached the Jordan and their feet touched the water's edge, the water from upstream stopped flowing. It piled up in a great heap a distance away at the town called Adam, in the vicinity of Zarephath. While the water flowing down to the sea, the Arabah, the salt sea, was completely cut off. So the people crossed over opposite Jericho. The priest who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan, while all Israel passed by until the whole nation had completed the crossing on dry ground. Chapter 4. When the whole nation had finished crossing the Jordan, The Lord said to Joshua, choose 12 men from among the people, one from each tribe, and tell them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, from right where the priest stood, and carry them with you and put them down at the place where you stay tonight. So Joshua called together the 12 men, and he had appointed from the Israelites, one from each tribe, and said to them, go over before the ark of the Lord your God into the middle of the Jordan. Each of you shall take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of tribes of the Israelites, to serve as a sign among you. In the future, when your children ask you, what do these stones mean? Tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever. So the Israelites did as Joshua commanded them. They took 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, according to the number of the tribes of Israel, as the Lord had told Joshua, and they carried them over to the camp, where they put them down. Joshua set those 12 stones up that had been in the middle of the Jordan, at the spot where the priests who carried the ark of the covenant had stood, and they are there to this day. Now the priests who carried the ark remained standing in the middle of Jordan till everything the Lord had commanded Joshua was done by the people. Just as Moses had directed Joshua, the people hurried over, and as soon as all of them had crossed the ark of the Lord, and the priest came to the other side. While the people watched, the men of Reuben, Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh crossed over, armed in front of the Israelites, as Moses had directed them. About 40,000 armed for battle crossed over before the Lord in the plains of Jericho for war. That day the Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they revered him all the days of his life, just as they had revered Moses. Then the Lord said to Joshua, command the priests carrying the ark of the testimony to come up out of the Jordan. So Joshua commanded the priests, come up out of the Jordan. As the priests came up out of the river, carrying the ark of the covenant of the Lord, no sooner had they set their feet on the dry ground, that the waters of the Jordan returned to their place and ran in flood as before. On the 10th day of the first month, the people went up from the Jordan and camped at Gilgal on the eastern border of the Jericho. And Joshua set up at Gilgal the 12 stones they had taken out of the Jordan. He said to the Israelites, in the future, when your descendants ask their fathers, what do these stones mean? Tell them Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground, for the Lord your God dried up the Jordan before you until you had crossed over. The Lord your God did to the Jordan just as he had done to the Red Sea, when he dried it up before us until we had crossed over. He did this so that all the people of the earth might know that the hand of the Lord is powerful, and that you might always keep fear of the Lord your God. Chapter 5. Circumcision at Gilgal. Now when all the Amorites kings west of the Jordan, and all the Canaanite kings along the coast heard how the Lord had dried up the Jordan before the Israelites until we had crossed over, their hearts sank, and they no longer had the courage to face the Israelites. At that time the Lord said to Joshua, make flint knives and circumcise the Israelites again. So Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the Israelites at Gibeath-Aliath. Now this is why he did so. All those who came out of Egypt, all the men of military age, died in the desert on the way after leaving Egypt. All the people that came out of being circumcised were all the people born in the desert during the journey from Egypt had not. The Israelites had moved about in the desert 40 years until all the men who were of military age when they left Egypt had died, since they had not obeyed the Lord. For the Lord had sworn to them that they would not see the land that he had solemnly promised their fathers to give them, a land flowing with milk and honey. So he raised up their sons in their places, and these were the ones Joshua circumcised. They were still uncircumcised because they had not been circumcised on the way. And after the whole nation had been circumcised, they remained there in the camp until they were healed. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Today I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you, so that this place has been called Gilgal to this day." On the evening of the 14th day of the month, while camped at Gilgal in the plains of Jericho, the Israelites celebrated the Passover. The day after the Passover, that very day that they ate some of the produce of the land, unleavened bread and roasted grain, the manna stopped. The day after that they ate this food from the land, there was no longer any manna for the Israelites, but that year they ate the produce of Canaan. So when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" "Neither," he replied, but as the command of the army of the Lord I have now come." Then Joshua fell down to the ground in reverence and asked, "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" Then the commander of the army replied, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy." And Joshua did so. Joshua chapter 6. Now Jericho was tightly shut up because of the Israelites. No one went out and no one came in. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I've delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its kings and its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Make 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. And on the 7th day, march around 7 times. The priest blowing the 7 trumpets. And march around the city 7 times, the priest blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, make all the people give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse, and the people will go up, every man straight in." So Joshua, son of Nun, called the priests and said, "Take up the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and make them, the priests, carry trumpets in front of it." And he ordered the people, "Advance, march around the city," and the armed guard going ahead of the ark of the Lord. When Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets before the ark went forward, blowing their trumpets, and the ark of the Lord's covenant followed them. The armed guard marched ahead of the priest who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard followed the ark. All this time the trumpets were sounding, but Joshua commanded the people, "Do not give a war cry, do not raise your voices, do not say a word until the day I tell you to shout, then shout." So he had the ark of the Lord carried around the city, circling it once. Then the people returned to camp and spent the night there. Joshua got up early next morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets went ahead, marching before the ark of the Lord and blowing the trumpets. The armed men went ahead of them, and the rear guard followed the ark of the Lord, while the trumpets kept sounding. So on the 2nd day they marched around the city once and returned to the camp. They did this for 6 days. On the 7th day, they got up at the daybreak and marched around the city 7 times in the same manner, except on that day they circled the city 7 times. The 7th time around, when the priest sounded the trumpet blast, Joshua commanded the people, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city. The city and all that is in are to be devoted to the Lord. Only Rahab, the prostitute, and all who are with her in the house shall be spared, because she hid the spies we sent. But keep away from the devoted things, so you not bring any about your own destruction by taking any of them. Otherwise you will make the camp of Israel liable to destruction and bring trouble on it. All the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron are sacred to the Lord and must go into the treasury. When the trumpet sounded, the people shouted. At the sound of the trumpet, the people gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed, and so every man charged in and they took the city. They devoted the city to the Lord and destroyed it with the sword, every living thing in it, men and women, young and old, cattle, sheep and donkeys. Joshua said to the two men who had spied out the land, "Go into the prostitute's house and bring her out, and all who belong to her, as in accordance with your oath to her." So the young men who had done the spying went in and brought out Rahab, her father and mother and sisters, and all who belonged to her. They brought out her entire family and put them in place outside the camp of Israel. Then they returned to the whole city and everything in it. But they put the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron into the treasury of the Lord's house. But Joshua spared Rahab the prostitute with her family and all who belonged to her, because she had hidden the men Joshua had sent as spies to Jericho, and and she lives amongst the Israelites to this day. At that time Joshua pronounced this solemn oath: "Cursed before the Lord is the man who undertakes to rebuild this city of Jericho. At the cost of his firstborn son, he will lay its foundations. The cost of his youngest son will he set up its gates." So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame spread throughout the land. Chapter 7. Achan's sin. But the Israelites acted unfaithfully in regard to the devoted things. Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, the son of Zerah, the tribe of Judah, took some of them. So the Lord's anger burned against Israel. Now Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Beth-aven, to the east of Jordan, and told them, "Go and spy out the region." So the men went up and spied out Ai. When they returned to Joshua, they said, "Not all the people will have to go against Ai. Send 2,000 or 3,000 men to take it. We do not weary all the people, for only a few men are there." So about 3,000 men went up, and they were routed by the men of Ai, who killed about 36 of them. They chased the Israelites from the city gate as far as the stone quarries and struck them down on the slopes. At this, the heart of the people melted and became like water. Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell face down to the ground before the ark of the Lord, remaining there till evening. The elders of Israel did the same and sprinkled dust on their heads. And Joshua said, "Ah, sovereign Lord, why did you ever bring this people across the Jordan to deliver us into the lands of the Amorites to destroy us? If only we had been content to stay on the other side of the Jordan. O Lord, what can I say now that Israel has been routed by its enemies? The Canaanites and the other people of the country will hear about this, and they'll surround us and wipe out your name from the earth. What then will you do for your great name?" The Lord said to Joshua, "Stand up. Why are you down on your face? Israel have sinned. They have violated my covenant which I commanded them to keep. They have taken some of the devoted things and they have put them in their own possessions. That is why the Israelites cannot stand against the enemies. They turn their backs and run because they've been made liable to destruction. I will not be with you anymore unless you destroy whatever among you is devoted to destruction. Go consecrate the people. Tell them, consecrate yourselves in preparation for tomorrow. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. That which is devoted among you, O Israel, you cannot stand against your enemies until you remove it. In the morning, present yourselves tribe by tribe. The tribe that the Lord takes shall come forward clan by clan. The clan that the Lord takes shall come forward family by family, and the family the Lord takes shall come forward man by man. He who is caught with the devoted things shall be destroyed by fire. Along with him, all that belong to him. He has violated the covenant of the Lord and has done a disgraceful thing in Israel. Early the next morning, Joshua and Israel come forward by tribe, and Judah was taken. The clans of Judah came forward, and he took the Zerites. He had the clan of Zerite come forward by families, and Zimri was taken. Joshua had his family come forward, man by man, and Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, was taken. Then Joshua said to Achan, my son, give glory to the Lord, the God of Israel, and give him praise. Tell us what you have done. Do not hide it from me. Achan replied, it is true. I have sinned against the Lord, the God of Israel. This is what I have done. When I saw in the plunder the beautiful robe from Babylon, 200 shekels of silver and a wedge of gold weighing 50 shekels, I coveted them and took them. They are hidden in the ground inside my tent with the silver underneath. So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and there it was hidden in his tent with the silver underneath. They took the things from the tent, brought them to Joshua and all Israel, and spread them out before the Lord. Then Joshua, together with all Israel, took Achan, son of Zerah, the silver, the robe, the gold wedge, his sons and his daughters, his cattle, donkeys and sheep, his tent and all that he had, to the valley of Achor. Joshua said, why have you brought this trouble on us? The Lord will bring trouble on you today. Then all Israel stoned him, and after they stoned the rest, they burned them. Over Achan they heaped up a large pile of rocks, which remain to this day. Then the Lord turned from his fierce anger. Therefore that place has been called the Valley of Achor ever since. Chapter 8, Ai destroyed. Then the Lord said to Joshua, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. Take the whole army with you and go up and attack Ai, for I have delivered into your hands the king of Ai, his people, his city and his land. You should do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king, except that you may carry off the plunder and livestock for yourselves. Set an ambush beyond the city. So Joshua and the whole army marched out to Ai. He chose 30,000 of his best fighting men and sent them to fight at night with these orders. Listen carefully, you are to set an ambush beyond the city. Don't go very far from it. All of you be on the alert, and I and all who with me will advance on the city, and when the men come out against us, they will pursue us until we have lured them away from the city. For they will say, they are running away from us as they did before. So when we flee from them, you are to rise from the ambush and take the city, and the Lord your God will give it into your hands. When you've taken the city, set it on fire. Do what the Lord has commanded. See to it that you have my orders. Then Joshua sent them off, and they went to the place of ambush and lay in wait between Bethel and Ai, to the west of Ai. But Joshua spent the night with the people. Early the next morning, Joshua mustered his men, and he and the leaders of Israel marched them to Ai. The entire force that was with him marched up and approached the city and arrived in front of it and set up camp north of Ai, with the valley between them and the city. Joshua had taken about 5,000 men and set them in ambush between Bethel and Ai to the west of the city. There the soldiers take up their positions, and those in the camp to the north of the city, and the ambush to the west. That night Joshua went into the valley. When the king of Ai saw this, and all the men of the city hurried out early in the morning to meet Israel in battle at a certain place overlooking the Arabah, but he did not know that an ambush had been set against him behind the city. Joshua and all Israel let themselves be driven back before them, and they fled towards the desert. All the men at Ai were to pursue them, and they pursued Joshua and were lured away from the city. Not a man remained in Ai or Bethel who did not go after Israel. They left the city open and went in pursuit of Israel. Then the Lord said to Joshua, hold out towards Ai the javelin that is in your hand, for into your hand I will deliver the city. So Joshua held his javelin towards Ai, and as soon as he did this, the men in the ambush rose quickly from their position and rushed toward them. They entered the city and captured it and quickly set it on fire. The men of Ai looked back and saw the smoke from the city rising against the sky, but they had no chance to escape in any direction, for the Israelites who had been fleeing towards the desert had turned back against their pursuers. For when Joshua and all Israel saw the ambush had taken the city, and that smoke was going up from the city, they turned around and attacked the men of Ai. The men of Ai were also came out of the city against them, so they were caught in the middle with Israelites on both sides. Israel cut them off, leaving them neither survivors nor fugitives, but they took the city of Ai alive and brought him to Joshua, king of Ai, alive, and brought him to Joshua. When Israel had finished killing all the men of Ai in the fields and in the desert where they chased them, and when every one of them had been put to the sword, all the Israelites returned to Ai and killed those who were in it. 12,000 men and women fell that day, all the people of Ai, for Joshua did not draw back the hand that held out the javelin until he had destroyed all who lived in Ai. But Israel did carry off for themselves the livestock, the plunder of the city, and so the Lord had instructed Joshua. So Joshua burned Ai, made it a permanent heap of ruins, a desolate place to this day. He hung the king of Ai and left him there until evening at sunset. Joshua ordered them to take his body from the tree and throw it down in the entrance to the city gate, and they raised a large pile of rocks over it, which remained to the day. Then Joshua built on Mount Ebal an altar to the Lord, the God of Israel, as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded the Israelites. He built it according to what is written in the book of the law of Moses, an altar of uncut stones, on which no iron tool had been used. On it they offered to the Lord their burnt offerings and sacrificed fellowship offerings. There in the presence of the Israelites, Joshua copied on stones the law of Moses which he had written. All Israel, aliens and citizens alike, with their elders, officials and judges, were standing on both sides of the ark of the covenant of the Lord, facing those who carried it. The priests who were Levite, half the people stood in front of Mount Gerizim, and half of them stood in front of Mount Ebal, as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded when he gave instructions to bless the people of Israel. Afterwards Joshua read all the words of the book of the law, the blessings and the curses, just as is written in the book of the law. Then there was not a word that all Moses had spoken that Joshua did not read, for the whole assembly of Israel, including the women and children and the aliens who lived among them. The Gibeonite deception, chapter 9. Now when all the kings west of the Jordan heard about these things, those in the hill country, in the western foothills, and along the entire coast of the Great Sea, as far as Lebanon, the kings of the Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, they came together to make war against Joshua and Israel. However, when the people of Gibeon learned what Joshua had done to Jericho and Ai, they resorted to a ruse. They sent a delegation whose donkeys were loaded with worn-out sacks and old wineskins cracked and mended. The men put worn and patched sandals on their feet and wore old clothes. All the bread of their food supply was dry and mouldy. Then they went to Joshua in the camp at Gilgal and said to the men of Israel, "We have come from a distant country. Make a treaty with us." And the men of Israel said to the Levites, "But perhaps you live near so how then can we make a treaty with you? We are your servants," they said to Joshua. But Joshua asked, "Who are you and where do you come from?" They answered, "Your servants have come from a very distant country because of the fame of the Lord your God. For we heard reports of him and all that he had done in Egypt and all that he did to the two kings of the Amorites, east of Jordan, Sihon, king of Heshbon, and Og, king of Bashan, who reigned in Ashtaroth. And our elders and all those living in our country said to us, 'Take provisions for your journey. Go and meet them and say to them, we are your servants. Make a treaty with us.' This bread of ours was warm when we packed it at home on the day that we left to come to you. But now see how dry and mouldy it is. And these wineskins that we filled were new. But see how cracked they are. And our clothes and sandals are worn out by the very long journey." The men of Israel sampled their provisions, but did not inquire of the Lord. Then Joshua made a treaty of peace with them to let them live. And the leaders of the assembly ratified it by oath. 3 days after they made the treaty with the Gibeonites, the Israelites heard that they were neighbours living near to them. So the Israelites set out, and the third day came to their cities, Gibeon, Kephirah, Beeroth, and Kiriath Jearim. But the Israelites did not attack them because the leaders of the assembly had sworn an oath to them by the Lord, the God of Israel. The whole assembly grumbled against the leaders, but all their leaders answered, "We have given our oath by the Lord, the God of Israel, and we cannot touch them now. This is what we will do to them. We will let them live, so that wrath will not fall on us for breaking the oath we swore to them." They continued, "Let them live, but let them be woodcutters and water carriers for the community." So the leader's promise to them was kept. Then Joshua summoned the Gibeonites and said, "Why did you deceive us by saying, 'We live a long way from you'? Well, actually, you live near us. You are now under a curse. You will never cease to serve as woodcutters and water carriers for the house of my God." They answered Joshua, "The servants were clearly told how the Lord your God had commanded his servant Moses to give you the whole land and to wipe out all its inhabitants from before you. So we feared for our lives because of you. And that is why we did this. We are now in your hands. Do to us whatever seems good and right to you." So Joshua saved them from the Israelites, and they did not kill them. That day the Gibeonites became woodcutters and water carriers for the community and for the altar of the Lord at the place the Lord would choose. And that is what they are to this day. Chapter 10. The sun stands still. Now Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, heard that Joshua had taken Ai and totally destroyed it, doing to Ai and its king as he had done to Jericho and its kings. And the people of the Gibeonites had made a treaty of peace with Israel and were living near them. He and his people were very much alarmed at this because Gibeon was an important city, like one of the royal cities. It was larger than Ai, and all its men were good fighters. So Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, appealed to Hoban, king of Hebron, Piram, king of Jarmuth, Japhia, king of Lachish, and Deber, king of Eglon. "Come and help me attack Gibeon," he said, "because it has made peace with Joshua and the Israelites." Then the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, Hebron, Jarmuth, Lachish, and Eglon, joined forces. They moved up with all their troops and took up positions against Gibeon and attacked it. The Gibeonites sent word to Joshua in the camp at Gilgal. Do not abandon your servants. Come up to us quickly and save us. Help us, because all the Ammonite kings from the hill country have joined forces against us. So Joshua marched up from Gilgal with his entire army, including all the best fighting men. The Lord said to Joshua, do not be afraid of them. I've given them into your hand. Not one of them will be able to withstand you. After an all-night march from Gilgal, Joshua took them by surprise. The Lord threw them into confusion before Israel, who defeated them in a great victory at Gibeon. Israel pursued them along the road going up to Beth Horon and cut them down all the way to Azekah and Makkedah. As they fled before Israel on the road down from Beth Horon to Azekah, the Lord hurled large hailstones down on them from the sky, and more of them died from the hailstones that were killed by the sword of the Israelites. On that day, the Lord gave the Amorites over to Israel. Joshua said to the Lord in the presence of Israel, O sun, stand still over Gibeon. O moon, over the valley of Hajalon. So the sun stood still and the moon stopped, till the nations avenged itself on its enemies. And it is written in the book of Jasher, the sun stood in the middle of the sky and delayed going down about a full day. There was never been a day like it before or since, a day when the Lord listened to a man. Surely the Lord was fighting for Israel. Then Joshua returned with all Israel to the camp at Gilgal. 5 Amorite kings killed. Now the 5 kings had fled and hidden in the cave at Makkedah. When Joshua was told that the 5 kings had been found hiding in the cave at Makkedah, he said, roll large rocks onto the mouth of the cave and put some men there to guard it. But don't stop. Pursue your enemies, attack them from the rear, and don't let them reach their cities, for the Lord your God has given them into your hand. So Joshua and the Israelites destroyed them completely, almost to a man. But a few were left who reached their fortified cities. The whole army then returned safely to Joshua in the camp at Makkedah, and no one uttered a word against the Israelites. Joshua said, open the mouth of the cave and bring those kings out now. So they brought the kings out of the cave, the king of Jerusalem, Hebron, Jarmuth, Lachish and Eglon. When they brought these kings to Joshua, he summoned all the men of Israel and said to the army commanders who had come up with him, come here and put your feet on the neck of these kings. So they came forward and planted their feet on their necks. Joshua said to them, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, be strong and courageous, for this is what the Lord will do to all the enemies you are going to fight. Then Joshua struck and killed the kings and hung them on the tree, and they were left hanging until evening. At sunset, Joshua gave the order, and they took them down from the trees and threw them into the cave where they had been hiding. At the mouth of the cave, they placed large rocks, which are there to this day. That day, Joshua took Makkedah. He put the city and its king to the sword and totally destroyed everyone in it. He left no survivors. And he did to the king of Makkedah as he'd done to the king of Jericho. Then Joshua and all Israel with him moved on from Makkedah to Libnah and attacked it. The Lord also gave that city and its king into Israel's hand. The city and everyone in it Joshua put to the sword. He left no survivors there, and he did to its king as he'd done to the king of Jericho. Then Joshua and all Israel with him moved on from Libnah to Lachish. He took up positions against it and attacked it. The Lord handed Lachish over to Israel, and Joshua took it on the second day. The city and everyone in it he put to the sword, just as he'd done to Libnah. Meanwhile, Horam, king of Gezer, had gone up to help Lachish, but Joshua defeated him and his army until no survivors were left. Then Joshua and all Israel with him moved on from Lachish to Eglon. They took up positions against it and attacked it. They captured it the same day and put to the sword and totally destroyed everyone in it, as they had done to Lachish. Then Joshua and all Israel went up from Eglon to Hebron and attacked it. They took the city and put it to the sword, together with its king and villages and everyone in it. They left no survivors, just as at Eglon they totally destroyed everyone in it. Then Joshua and all Israel with him turned around and attacked Debir. They took the city, its king, and its villages, and put them to the sword. Everyone in it they totally destroyed. They left no survivors. They did to Debir and its king, as they'd done to Libnah and its king, and to Hebron. So Joshua subdued the whole region, including the hill country, the Negev, the western foothills, and the mountain slopes, together with all their kings. He left no survivors. He totally destroyed all who breathed, just as the Lord, the God of Israel, had commanded. Joshua subdued them from Kadesh Barnea to Gaza, and the whole region of Goshen to Gibeon. All these kings and their lands Joshua conquered in one campaign, because the Lord, of the God of Israel, fought for Israel. Then Joshua returned with all the people to the camp at Gilgal. Joshua chapter 11. Northern kings defeated. When Jabin, king of Hazor, heard of this, he sent word to Jobab, king of Madon, to the kings of Shimron and Akshaph, and to the northern kings who were in the mountains, in the Arabah, south Kinnereth, in the western foothills, and in Apthahdor on the west, to the Canaanites in the east and the west, to the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites and Jebusites in the hill country, and to the Hivites below Hermon in the region of Mizpah. They came out with all their troops and a large number of horses and chariots, a huge army as numerous as the sand on the seashore. All these kings joined forces and made camp together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. The Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid of them, because by this time tomorrow I'll hand them over to you. Slain, you are to hamstring their horses and burn their chariots." So Joshua and his whole army came against them suddenly at the waters of Merom and attacked them. And the Lord gave them into the hand of Israel. They defeated them and pursued them all the way to the great Sidon, to Mizrapoth, Naim, and the valley of Mizpah to the east, until no survivors were left. Joshua did to them as the Lord had directed. He hamstrung their horses and burned their chariots. At that time Joshua turned back and captured Hazor and put its king to the sword. Hazor had been the head of all these kingdoms. Everyone in it they put to the sword. They totally destroyed them, not sparing anything that breathed. And he burned up Hazor itself. Joshua took all these cities and their kings, put them to the sword. He totally destroyed them, as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded. Yet Israel did not burn any of the cities built on the mount, except Hazor, which Joshua burned. The Israelites carried off for themselves all the plunder and the livestock of these cities, but all the people they put to the sword until they completely destroyed them, not sparing anyone that breathed. As the Lord commanded his servant Moses, so Moses commanded Joshua, and Joshua did it. He left nothing alone of all that the Lord had commanded Moses. So Joshua took his entire land, the hill country, all the Negev, the whole region of Goshen, the western foothills, the Arabah, and the mountains of Israel with their foothills, from Mount Halak, which rises towards Seir, to Baal Gad in the valley of Lebanon, before Mount Hermon. He captured all their kings and struck them down, putting them to death. Joshua waged war against all the kings for a long time, except for the Hittites living in Gibeon. Not one city made a treaty of peace with the Israelites, who took them all in battle. For it was the Lord himself who hardened their hearts to war against Israel, so that he might destroy them totally, exterminating them without mercy, as the Lord had commanded Moses. At that time Joshua went and destroyed the Anakites from the hill country, from Hebron, Debir, and Hannah, from all the hill country of Judah, and from all the hill country of Israel. Joshua totally destroyed them and their towns. No Anakites were left in Israelite territory. Only in Gaza, Gath and Ashdod did any survive. So Joshua took the entire land, just as the Lord had directed Moses, and he gave it as an inheritance to Israel according to their tribal division. Then the land had rest from war. List of defeated kings. Joshua chapter 12. These are the kings of the land whom the Israelites had defeated, and whose territory they had took over east of the Jordan, from the Arnon Gorge to Mount Hermon, including all the eastern side of the Arabah. Sihon, king of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon. He ruled from Rayor to the rim of Arnon Gorge, from the middle of the gorge to the Jabbok River, which is the border of the Ammonites. This included half of Gilead. He also ruled over the Arabah eastern, from the Sea of Kinnereth to the Sea of the Arabah, the Salt Sea, to Beth Jeshimoth, and then southward and below the slopes of Pisgah, and the territory of Og, king of Bashan, and of the east of Rephites, who reigned in Ashtaroth and Edrei. He ruled over Mount Hermon. Salika, all of Bashan, to the border of the people of Jeshua and Makkah, and half of Gilead to the border of Sihon, king of the Ammonites. Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the Israelites conquered them. And Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave their land to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh to be their possession. They are the kings of the land that Joshua and the Israelites conquered on the west side of the Jordan, from Baal-Gad in the valley of Lebanon to Mount Halak, which rises towards Seir, the land Joshua gave as an inheritance to the tribes of Israel according to their tribal divisions. The hill country, the western foothills, the Arabah, the mountain slopes, the deserts, and the lands of the Hittites, Ammonites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. The king of Jericho won. The king of Ai near Bethel won. The king of Jerusalem won. The king of Hebron won. The king of Jarmuth won. The king of Lachish won. The king of Eglon won. The king of Gezer won. The king of Debir won. The king of Gedar won. The king of Hormah won. The king of Arad won. The king of Libnah won. The king of Adullam won. The king of Makkedah won. The king of Bethel won. The king of Tappuah won. The king of Hether won. The king of Athak won. The king of Lasharon won. The king of Madon won. The king of Hazor won. The king of Shimron won. The king of Aksaph won. The king of Taknah won. The king of Megiddo won. The king of Kedesh won. The king of Jokneam in Carmel won. The king of Dor in Naphtha Dor won. The king of Goyim in Gilgal won. The king of Tirzah, 31 kings in all. Land still to be taken, Joshua 13. When Joshua was old and well advanced in years, the Lord said to him, "You are very old, and there are still very large areas of land to be taken over. This is the land that remains, all the regions of the Philistines and Gershurites, from the Shiloh River to the east of Egypt, to the territory of Ekron on the north, all of it counted as Canaanite, the territory of 5 Philistine rulers in Gaza, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron, that of the Abites. From the south, all the land of the Canaanites, from Arah, the Sidonites as far as Aphek, the ruler of the region of the Amorites, the area of the Gebaites, and all the Lebanon to the east, from that Baal-Gad below Mount Hermon to Amath. As for all the inhabitants of the western of the mountain regions, from Lebanon to Mishperath, Mam, that is all the Sidonians, I myself will drive them out before the Israelites. Be sure to allocate this land to Israel for inheritance, as I have instructed you, and divide it as an inheritance among the 9 tribes and half the tribe of Manasseh. Division of the land east of Jordan. The other half of Manasseh, the Reubenites and the Gadites, have received the inheritance that Moses had given them east of the Jordan, as he, the servant of the Lord, had assigned it to them. It extended from Aroer on the ridge of the Arnon Gorge, and from the town in the middle of the gorge, and included in the whole plateau of Medeba as far as Dibon, and all the towns of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who ruled in Heshbon, out to the border of the Ammonites. It also included Gilead, the territory of the people of Geshur and Maacah, all the Mount Hermon, and all Bashan as far as Salekah. That is the whole kingdom of Og in Bashan, who had reigned in Ashtaroth and Edrei, and had survived as one of the last of the Rephites. Moses had defeated them and taken over their land. But the Israelites did not drive out the people of Geshur and Maacah, and they continue to live among them to this day. But to the tribe of Levi he gave no inheritance, since the offerings made by fire to the Lord, the God of Israel, are their inheritance, as he promised them. This is what Moses had given to the tribe of Reuben, clan by clan. The territory from Ariah on the ring of the Arnon Gorge, and from the town in the middle of the gorge and the whole plateau past Medeba to Heshbon, and all its towns in the plateau, including Dibon, Bamoth, Baal, Beth, Balmon, Jaosh, Kedemoth, Nepayath, Kitharaim, Sibmah, Stereth Shahar, on the hill of the valley, Beth Peor, the slopes of Pisgah, and Beth Jeshimoth. All the towns on the plateau and the entire realm of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who ruled at Heshbon. Moses had defeated him and the Midianite chiefs, Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, princes allied with Sihon, who lived in that country. In addition to those slain in battle, the Israelites had put to the sword Balaam, son of Beor, who practiced divination. The boundary of the Reubenites was at the bank of the Jordan. These towns and their villages were the inheritance of the Reubenites, clan by clan. This is what Moses had given to the tribe, clan by clan. The territory of Jazer, all the towns of Gilead, and half the Ammonite country as far as Aurora, near Rabbah, and from Heshbon to Ramoth Mizpah, and Betinam, and from Mahanaim to the territory of Deba, in the valley of Beth-Eram, Beth-Nimrah, Succoth, and Zaphon, with the rest of the tribe of Zion, king of Heshbon, the east side of the Jordan, the territory up to the end of the Sea of Kinnereth. These towns and their villages were the inheritance of the Gadites, clan by clan. This is what Moses had given to the half tribe of Manasseh, that is to half the family of the descendants of Manasseh, clan by clan. The territory extending from Mahanaim and including all of Bashan, the entire realm of Og, king of Bashan, all the settlements of Jair in Bashan, 60 towns. Half of Gilead and Ashtaroth and Edrei, the royal cities of Og in Bashan. This was for the descendants of Maacah, son of Manasseh, for half of the tribe of Maacah, clan by clan. This is the inheritance Moses had given when he was in the plains of Moab, across the Jordan, east of Jericho. But to the tribe of Levi, Moses had given no inheritance. The Lord, the God of Israel, is their inheritance, as he promised them.